Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming today. And today broadly, I'll be discussing about what is required for success in life. And so I'll talk from very broad terms, and then we'll move towards more universal, specific devotional terms. See, in general, among humans versus animals, in some ways, for animals, they are largely driven by their biology. They have a mating season when they want to mate, they have eating time when they want to eat, and their life is driven by that. So for us humans, it's largely they are driven by survival value. What are the things which will help me to survive? Now we humans also have that, but we humans, our life can be much more confusing because we want something more in our life. At the end of a day, we are not just satisfied, oh, today was successful because I survived. No, if we are in a war zone and there's somebody out to kill us and we survive, that's a different thing. But survival itself is not considered in our terms a great achievement. What we want is, there is much more at a subtle domain. There is psychology, philosophy, all that comes in. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But we want value to survival. Not just I want to live, but I want my life to have some value. And what will bring value to our life? What will bring value to our survival? Regarding that, different people can have different conceptions. Somebody may say, if I have a family and I raise a family, that will bring value to my life. Somebody may say, okay, I want to serve my country. Somebody may say, I want to take care of the environment. Most people say, I want to take care of myself. Everybody is an eye specialist. Not EYE eye specialist, it's eye specialist. So what happens is, like that, every one of us is thinking, what will bring value to my life? So now, because of this, our life tends to become much more complicated. See, in general, wherever we are, we could go at one moment in a dozen directions. So for us, because our biology is one of our driving forces, but not our only driving force, so we can tend to be much more confused. What should I do? If I want to choose a career, should I study in this field or that field? If I have to choose an elective, should I choose this elective or that elective? If I'm going to take a job, should I take a job in this company or that company? If I'm going to get married, should I get married to this person or that person? So if I'm going to stay in this city, or should I move to another city? There are so many decisions we have to make. And those decisions can sometimes overwhelm us. So if we consider from that perspective, there are two things which are important. Sometimes in English they are called as means and ends. I'll explain this. Means and ends means that in my life, what is it that is desirable? And what is the means to get what is desired? So what is desirable? I want to come first in my class. That's desirable. So parents tell a child who is not doing very well, no, you come first in your class. The child comes back one day from the exam, goes to school and says, Mommy, Daddy, I've come first in my class. Congratulations, how did you do that? Child said, I worked very hard to learn computer hacking, and I hacked my teacher's computer. And I got all the questions beforehand, and that's how I memorized all the answers and I came first. That's not how I wanted you to come first, isn't it? I wanted to study and come first. So there are ends, what ends to achieve and what means to use to achieve things. Both of these are important questions. What is worth achieving in life and how do we go about achieving it? So for example, now we consider that I want to get a good job. That's the end. I want to have a stable job. Now, what is the means to it? You'll say that, okay, you get some good degree. Somebody will say that, but you also need to get some practical experience. Maybe you need to do some vocational training along with it. You need to know how things work in the job, how things work in real life. So basically, much of our indecision is at one level, if I want to put it this way, life can be confusing. At one level, it is confusing. Here, I'm talking more about the ends. Which ends do I want to achieve? But life can also be confusing about even when I decide a particular ends to achieve. Now, in this visual, you may say this is a straight way. And probably that is the easiest or the shortest way. But in real life, which way is the shortest is not necessarily clear. So I want to achieve an ends, and how do I go about achieving that ends? So in today's session, we are going to focus primarily on the means, but we also talk about the ends a little bit. But tomorrow morning, I'll focus more on the ends. So if I have decided I want to achieve something, say I want to get a particular kind of job, or I want to rise to this level in my job, or say I want to become an author, I want to become a social media influencer, whatever it is I want to become. So what is required for this? Now it's just, okay, work hard and you will achieve it. Now many people work hard and don't achieve it, and people say work smart. Now work smart, what does it mean? Only the smart people know about it. And anybody who does not succeed, they say you didn't work smart enough. It's like, what actually contributes to success? Why is it that some people start something and they succeed, others do not? There are multiple factors involved over here, but we'll talk about 3 factors. And we'll talk about it in particular terms. That when we function in life, say if I am here and I want to get here, this is my destination. So when you talk about the means, we can refer to the means in terms of, so should I myself study more? Should I join a coaching class? Should I take personal coaching? Should I do this? Should I do that? There's so many decisions we have to make. And sometimes the specifics, the minutiae of these decisions, minutiae is the minute details of the decisions, can consume us. But broadly, there are 3 factors. That is, from the action to lead to the result. There is karma, there is daiva, and there is kala. Karma, daiva, and kala. These 3 together, they contribute to the result. So for example, if somebody is farming, that karma is that they have to plow the land. The daiva is that rains have to come. And the kala is the season has to change to the harvesting season. So karma, daiva, and kala. All 3 will work. If a couple get married and decide to have a child, they unite, that's a karma. But it's not that every time union happens, there's conception that happens. So for that conception, daiva is required. Nowadays, fertility is a huge problem. I have a friend who is a doctor. He was studying that the fastest growing medical field right now is fertility. Like on one side, abortions are increasing. People are ending the lives of children. On the side, they want to have children. They struggle to have children. So now there's something beyond the human. Despite trying whatever treatments we may try, IVF or whatever, there's no guarantee in this. So we do our karma, that is daiva. But even after conception happens, it's not that next day we will have a baby. There is kala, gestation period is there. So in some examples, this karma, daiva, and kala, these 3 factors, they are very easy to understand. In some other situations, it may take some more time. So if we have to build a relationship and so on. Now what happens that every relationship, whether it is a professional relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a relationship with a friend, whatever relationship it may be, somebody wants to build a relationship, it requires, at one level, some endeavor is required. But after the endeavor, say the karma is there, but trust building also takes time. infatuation does not take time. Infatuation can happen immediately. But then people fall in love and then they fall out of love. So that also happens at times. So the idea is that trust and infatuation are very different. And consistently showing up, consistently being there, consistently being reliable, that's what builds trust in any relationship. So that requires time. That's kala. So say for example, I do my part. Whatever I promised to do, I do it. That's karma. And I keep doing it consistently. It's one thing to say I'm attracted to someone. It's another thing to say I trust someone. When trust has to be earned, it'll require kala. But even with all that, there is an element of daiva. The daiva is what we can call as destiny over here. It's something, sometimes some people, we are there for them for a lot of time, we do a lot of things for them, but still they never come close to us. Or they never bring us close to them. And somebody else who does not do much for them, still, what may happen is, say in our college, we may want to come close to a faculty, not just because we want them to give us good marks, but we actually want to learn the subject. We do extra assignments, and some of the faculty, okay, standoffish with us. Some other kid who does not do much also, the faculty is quite special. There is something mysterious also about it, something beyond us. So, problem is karma, daiva, and kala. These three factors are important. Now, these three are associated with three factors that the Updeshamrit, that is the Nectar of Instruction written by Rupa Goswami, talks about as required for us to succeed in life. With doing our karma, we require enthusiasm. We require utsaha. So, whatever is in our part to do, we need enthusiasm for doing that. Now, with respect to kala, we need patience. Patience is what? Dhairya. So, kala, it will take its own time. And daiva, that is, there's destiny. That is where we need faith. The confidence, it's more like faith. That is, utsaha, nishchaya. So, broadly, it's for us to succeed in any endeavor, you could say there is the part, there's the human part. For doing our part, we need to be enthusiastic. For that which is beyond our control, now we could say daiva determines both, kala also, but I will talk about why kala, we get a separate element over here. So destiny means some factors beyond us have to fall in place. But the thing is, in some situations, even when the factors beyond me fall in place, after that also, suppose somebody opens a restaurant. If you have a restaurant, we have to cook well. You have to have good care for the customers who come in. To be polite, staff, we get all that. And daiva is what? That maybe the place where we are, there is some big sports event, or political event, or religious event, or whatever. A lot of people come and they search, and we had a crowd coming over there. That's fortune, it's a destiny. But then, it's one time people come, they like it. Second time they come, third time they come. Oh, this is a good place. I want to keep visiting over here. So what happens? Gradually that trust, that reputation develops. So karma, daiva, kala, these three are elements that are involved for success in any endeavor. So now, in different endeavors, it's not necessarily that it's convenient, this is 33%, this is 33%, this is 33%. It's not necessarily like that. Or you can make 33.33% to be more precise. It's not that simple. In some areas, it might be that the destiny has to work out, the role of destiny becomes much, much more. And the role of endeavor becomes relatively less. Say if you consider a cricket match. Now some pitches, they are very good for batting. And there, the batsman has to make efforts to get out. The pitch is such that it's like a bit called the batter's paradise. So there, the karma, the batter doesn't have to be very expert. Batter, they just play and the shots happen. So in one sense, you could say the destiny at that particular point is favorable. But even then, it doesn't matter, the batter comes and just swings the bat once and the batter will have a century to the. No, time will be required. So karma, daiva kala. Sometimes it may be that the karma might be 10%, the daiva might be 80%, and the kala might be 10%. Now, sometimes it might be that, like some cricket pitches, might be like a bowler's dream and a batter's nightmare. The way the ball rises, bounces, lays low and swings and spins and all those things, it's very, very difficult to bat. And so there, sometimes the faith's favorability may be very, very less. So then what happens? It is the batter who has to put in 80% effort. And that's why sometimes a double century on a pitch which is like a batter's paradise and may not be as praiseworthy as a half century on a pitch that is a bowler's paradise. So the thing is that success is not so simple to quantify or measure in life. But broadly, all these three factors are involved. That we need to be enthusiastic, we need to have faith that whatever is beyond our control, it will work out. And then we have to have patience, that things will take their time to work out. So with this understanding, let's look at it from another perspective, and we'll go into each of these elements. So as I said, right now, I'm not focusing on what it is that we want to achieve. No, I'm talking about means and ends. So how, tomorrow morning when I talk about how in Krishna Bhakti, or whenever we have the next session for this topic, I'll talk about how, when we are practicing Bhakti, how all these three actually are most productively done when they are directed towards Krishna. And how Krishna also helps us with these things. But let's explore these one by one. So I hope this point is clear about these three elements and how they interplay with each other. So now,
one question. When we refer Kal, like I have two understanding of Kal. I just want to clarify that which understanding is better. That one thing is, any effort you do, there is a certain time required. Like for example, you want to prepare for JEE, then 2 years is required. But sometimes, in negative example, when you see that some person has done some bad karma and he is not getting the bad effect of that, then we say that ki Kal is not, अभी तक समय नहीं हुआ है उसके, it is not the time to fructify his karma. So Kal is linearly dependent, like is it a measurable thing कि measure कर सकते हैं कि इस कर्मा के लिए इतना काल लगता है, या काल एक ऐसा फैक्टर है जो कभी भी हो सकता है, there is no limit over it.
That's a good question. When we talk about time, how do we, is there an objective measure for time required for particular things? Well, it depends. And normally we could say in certain areas, see, in general, in life, there is a normal way things function. Or let's not use the word normal, because the word abnormal has a negative connotation. So let me use the word standard over here. It's a standard way things function. And there are some things which work in non-standard ways. What do I mean by that? So normally, if pregnancy is good, the normal period is 9.5, 10 months, whatever you want to say. But sometimes there might be a premature delivery. So like babies don't stick to a timetable. They arrive on their own time. Now, of course, with medical intervention and cesarean, sometimes we can fix the time. But still, sometimes it's unpredictable. So there's a normal standard time duration. But there are exceptions to the standard. So there's a non-standard situation also. So for example, if somebody wants to learn a language, a new language, then how long will it take to learn a language? Well, if we go and learn an online course, we say 6 months, you attend every day for 1 hour, you start speaking this language. Now, most people, if the course is well structured, well designed, people, if they put in the effort, they should be able to learn. Some people may become very fluent, some people may just barely be able to communicate. So there are always borderlines on both sides. Like that, in that much time, lot more can happen, and that much time, less can happen. But in general, so now what you are talking about is slightly different, and I'll come to that. See, when we use the word karma, it can be used in a functional sense and in a moral sense. That while they are related, but they are not exactly the same. Functional sense means what? That if there is water underground, I have to dig to get water. That is karma. It's in a functional sense. Now, is there a moral dimension to it? Well, it depends if it's not our property and we're taking water over there. That's a moral dimension to it. But I'm talking right now simply in a functional sense only. That in any, suppose I was just Dubai 15 days ago, 20 days ago, so 15 days ago actually. So there, we went and saw some oil fields over there. So now if you see, they know there is oil, that particular part of the oil. Now we have quite sophisticated sensors to detect. But the thing is, sometimes the oil is offshore. And then you know there is oil, but you don't know how deep it is. And then it is, it's always a bit of a gamble. That even when there's gold in a particular place. Okay, it's gold over here, but is it exactly over here? Is it over there? And how deep do we need to dig to get it? So there is an element which is beyond our control. So if somebody is digging for oil or gold or water, there is karma. Karma is that you have to keep digging. The daiva is the gold has to, the water, whatever you're digging for, that has to be there. And then kala is how deep is it? So I'm talking about it in a functional sense. Now, in the moral sense, we're talking about the reactions to our actions. Like somebody has done something bad, and the results for them, when will they get them? That's a completely different dimension of karma. And that's also important to consider. But that's not our focus right now. So because what happens sometimes, when we focus too much on the moral side of karma, see karma, like even karma or even dharma for that matter, it's a moral concept, but it's also simply a functional concept. That's the way the world works. So now, in the moral dimension of karma, it is true that some people may have particular kind of karma by which certain results may not come to them. So it could be that somebody smokes regularly and never gets lung cancer. And somebody never smokes and gets lung cancer. Now, by taking those extremes, you can say that there's no correlation, there's no connection between smoking and lung cancer. But that's not true. So sometimes past karma may intervene over there. But that is more of a moral dimension. What that would mean is that a particular person by their past karma has got very robust body right now. Very healthy body. And that's why even if they are abusing the body right now, that is not leading to any particular kind of results of that. Okay? I think we need to put this. So, broadly, when we are discussing in life, how do we attain success? So, there is karma, daiva, and kala. So, accordingly, with enthusiasm, we need utsaha, nishchaya, and dhairya. Let's try to look at it from another perspective to understand this a little bit more. In material nature, there are three modes, three gunas. Which are the three gunas? Yes, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now, sattvam rajas tama iti guna prakriti sambhava nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Krishna says that these three elements are present in nature. Now there are two ways of understanding, many ways of understanding these modes, but let's look at one particular aspect of it. See, what standard metaphor we use is the guna, they are like ropes They pull us in particular directions. And that is true. And from that perspective, we could say tamoguna is bad. Tamoguna makes us lethargic. Tamoguna makes us apathetic, uncaring. That is true. While it is undoubtedly true, in one sense, if we consider in nature, all three modes are important. Like at night when we sleep, if the mode of tamas doesn't come upon us, we may want to sleep but will not be able to sleep. And like, see, the moment of sleeping is actually, it's a bit of a mysterious moment. Recently I've been having problems with sleeping. So I've been reading a little bit about sleep. And there are philosophers who have written books about the philosophy of sleeping. And it's not just Western philosophers, and they often talk about dreaming and other things, but even Vedanta, there's a lot of analysis of sleep. The point is that the moment when we actually fall asleep, that particular transition from the waking state to the sleeping state, that is not really in our control. Now we will be lying down in bed, and there's a particular time we fall asleep. Now we can make the conditions right. We can make sure that we are comfortable. We make sure there's not much noise around us. We make it dark. We can do all those things. But that particular moment, it's almost like a switch turns off. We can create the conditions for the switch to turn off, but that turning off of the switch, that is not completely in our control. So for example, there's Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Now, broadly speaking, the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, these three are associated with three things. It is Tamas that brings patience. Now, I'll talk about how this can work negatively also. That see, it's like I want to work and I want to achieve things in my life. But you all need to sleep. For many people, the people who have, many people, their bed is like the magical place where as soon as they get out of it, they remember all the things they did not do throughout the day. Then what happens? Oh, I do this also, I do this also. I just can't sleep. So now, to some extent, I have to let go. Yes, then tomorrow morning the sun will rise and I'll do those things. So now too much patience also is a problem. Like you never do anything. So what we'll talk about here is that patience. See, all these three are elements of nature, and all three are important. Now, Rajas is what brings utsaha. Rajas is what brings energy. Come on, do things, move, shake up. People with the Rajas are there more than shakers. And now, people Sattva, they have this nishchaya. They have that faith that there is a higher arrangement. Now, in some ways, Sattva and Tamas can look very similar. But externally it is similar. A person Rajoguna is hyper energetic, running around. A person Sattva is peaceful. A person Tamoguna is also peaceful. But a person Sattva is peaceful and thoughtful. A person Tamoguna is peaceful and thoughtless. Thoughtless in the sense of just their mind is wandering or they're lethargic, they're uncaring. But the point is that in nature, a balance of all three is there. So there is a certain level of energy that is there, that is associated with our utsaha. There is also a certain level of patience that is required. But patience can, so if you consider these three to be like a triangle, there is utsaha, enthusiasm is required, without which nothing will happen. Then there is nishchaya, that when I do my part, then God will take care of things. God will do His part. And then we need dhairya. Now when I say that this is dhairya is associated with tamoguna, I'm not saying that we can become more tamasic and have more patience. That is not the point I'm making. These three modes can be seen from a moral perspective and they can be seen from a functional perspective. From a moral perspective, when we look at the modes, we can say Sattva Guna is good, or Sattva Guna is the best, and Tamo Guna is the worst. But the gunas, as I said, they can be seen from both perspectives. A functional perspective. So I am right now looking at it from a functional perspective. So sometimes if you study Ayurveda and you do some Ayurvedic analysis, then they will tell what is the composition of which guna in you. And for some people, the sattva guna is too much. That can be a problem also. So for people who sattva guna is too much, they have too many thoughts. And it's not that thoughts are not good. There are too many good thoughts. They are good at having good thoughts, but they are not good about doing something about the good thoughts. They get a lot of good ideas also. So the person tamaguna, they will just live passively. They either get bad ideas or they get no ideas. They just live. So the thing is, there is a moral dimension to this. But we are talking right now from a simply functional perspective. That people who are Rajoguna, they will have a lot of energy to do things, but they will not be patient. And that Rajoguna can lead to a lot of anxiety also. What if this doesn't work? That doesn't work. So these three, you could say in one sense, are like a triangle in the sense that all three, when all three are there, within all three, there is success that comes out. So now, if, let's try to look at this from other, as I said, continuous perspective. If there is only utsaha, if there is only energy without any patience or without any faith, then this is what leads to a hyper-controlling mentality. Hyper-controlling means you start something today and tomorrow it has to be done. And you're just not ready to give space for anything or anyone else. And probably managers, some people are type A managers, they say they're very, very controlling. It's like they would like to advise everyone in what they are doing. They will give advice to one God. Do this, don't do like this. Why are you doing like this? So, with too much of utsaha without the other two becomes a problem. So, we neither acknowledge the role of time, nor do we acknowledge the role of destiny, of the ego. So, when this happens, then, see another point I'll talk about over here that we have to. In general, in life, there is artha. Artha means there are things of value. And there could be many things of value. So, for example, just surviving is a thing of value. And like that, there are many things of value. We want to survive. After survive, we need oxygen, we need food, we need a home, we need warm clothes. We need some amount of respect in society. We all need all these things. So there are many things in life. And then there is a Paramartha. Paramartha is the supreme value. Artha and Paramartha. So ultimately Paramartha is God, Krishna. And I'll talk about that tomorrow. But what happens for many of us, sometimes Artha, that which is Artha itself can become a Paramartha. That which is of value, we can make it into a thing of supreme value. And when Artha becomes Paramartha, that leads to Anartha. What do I mean by this? That when that which is of intermediate value becomes of supreme value, so that leads to Anartha. For example, if you consider wealth. Now wealth is Artha. But wealth becomes the supreme value, it will lead to greed. Now we all need pleasure in life. No, if you're eating food, we would like to have some pleasure in eating food. If we watch some entertainment, we want to get some pleasure in that. But when pleasure becomes the supreme value, it becomes addiction. Now, we all need some level of control in life. Right now, if I'm giving this class, I need a certain level of control in the class. I'd say all the audience should be peaceful. They should keep their phone in silent mode. They should not be chatting among each other. That's the level of control that's required. But suppose there is some small child in the class, the child starts crying. Now that is a loss of control. Now, if I make control the most important thing, then I start yelling at the child, or I start yelling at the parents of the child. Then what will happen? At the end of the class, no matter how good my class was, the audience will only remember how I yelled at the child or the parents. So what happens when control becomes the most important thing? It leads to anger. We all need control, and when control becomes the most important thing, it becomes a problem. Similarly, we all need respect. Okay? But when respect becomes the most important thing, that leads to ego. Like sometimes somebody does something wrong, and they say the other person has really got on their case. Just apologize and just end this matter. I will die, but I will not apologize. Hell, why? Yes, respect is important. But if we are a student and we are learning something from a teacher, sometimes the teacher corrects us, publicly corrects us, or harshly corrects us. Now, nobody likes to be, we may say disrespectful, nobody likes to be disrespected. But then, if we are going to a teacher, we are not going to a teacher to be respected. We are going to a teacher to learn. Of course, we are not going there to be disrespected either. But the point is, if respect becomes the most important value for me, then I will never be able to learn in terms of getting some feedback. Isn't it? So anything good, if it becomes too much, artha becomes paramartha, that leads to anartha. So from going back to our perspective, when utsaha, enthusiasm becomes the most important, it's artha, it's a valuable thing, but it becomes the only thing at the cost of everything else, it leads to hyper. Similarly, if we consider nishchaya and dhairya. Now, patience. If patience is the only thing we have, and we don't have anything else, that will lead to passivity. We have to be patient, but like if you go to a hospital, you have to be patient. But just being patient doesn't make you a patient. You have to take the treatment to be a patient. I'm just patient in the hospital. No, we have to actually do something also. And we have to wait for the treatment to work. The treatment may not work overnight. So in that sense, if patience alone is there, that's the problem. That will lead to passivity. I will wait for things to work. Like, okay, I have got this property. I'll wait for a harvest to grow over here. Have you sowed the seeds? Have you plowed the land? No, I'm just waiting. No, if we are always waiting, we will basically be waiters. We will not be winners ever. We can just constantly keep waiting. So now, if we consider nishchaya is faith. Now, like I said, that the mode of goodness and the mode of ignorance, they are somewhat similar. Internally they are different, but externally they are similar. Now, when we have faith, but that faith is not translated into energy. Okay, I have faith in God. It is good, but faith in God also has to be transmitted into some kind of action. If there's only faith without action, that leads to sentimentality. So, sentimentality and passivity seem similar, but what is the difference? In passivity, we are doing nothing. In sentimentality, we are expecting God to do everything. So, if you see, in bhakti, there is the aspect of Sharanagati. There is the aspect of surrender. Now we have the example of Draupadi's surrender, and how Draupadi surrendered was, she raised her arms. Independence on Krishna, complete dependence on Krishna. At the end of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna also told Arjuna to surrender. Krishna said, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. And Arjuna replied by saying, Karishye vachanam tava. Says, I will do your will. So he did surrender. But Arjuna's surrender was not raising his hands. Arjuna's surrender was raising his Gandhiva, raising his phone. So because what happens is, when we are God conscious, there are two distinct aspects to this. Let's try to look at another way now. If I am here in the world and above me is God Krishna. So now surrender means that I accept God's will. God's will as it is happening to me. So when something just happens by factors beyond our control, we can say it's God's will and I accept it. So Draupadi, she was, okay, I accept Krishna. In this situation, nothing is in my control, so I accept it. That is surrender. That is dhairya. That is nishchaya. But God's will also is meant to happen through me. It is not just that I am supposed to accept God's will, but I am also supposed to do God's will myself. So Draupadi is the example of accepting God's will as it is happening to me. And Arjuna, specifically at the end of the Bhagavad-Gita, is the example of accepting God's will as it is meant to happen through me. As it is meant to happen through me. So both these aspects are important. And there are times when, so if we come back again to this particular point, so accepting God's will as it is happening to me, that is an indication of Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dhairya, which one? Nishchaya. This is the example of Nishchaya. And accepting my responsibility to God's will, that would be Utsaha. That would be enthusiasm. And I also have to do some things. So our faith should actually lead to enthusiasm. If I have faith, then that should lead me to enthusiasm. In fact, in the English etymology of words, the word enthusiasm, in that there is the word theos. And in theos, that is actually that God is within you. Like theology is the study of God. So enthusiasm, that word originally came with the followers of Jesus. They had enormous energy after the crucifixion of Jesus to go around in sharing his message. And that was said, there is God inside. These people are they are enthusiastic. So that is the original meaning. Now it has become very generic, the word. But the point is that if our faith is there, it should lead us to enthusiasm. So yes, God is there and God will do his part. But God will do his part, I also have to do my part. So I have to do my part and God will do his part. Utsaha and Nishchaya. So I talked about at one level how having only one of these a problem. So if we have only one of these without the other two balancing out, then it will lead us to a state of imbalance. Now I will conclude with 2 points. One is how, ideally speaking, all these three, they come together. How they come together in a harmony. So ideals, now here envision is a triangle. But if you envision it another way, there are only so many ways in which you can envision things, but let's try. There's enthusiasm. There is faith. And then there is patience. So in the best case situation, what will happen is our faith will enhance our enthusiasm and our enthusiasm will enhance our faith. Our faith will enhance our patience and our patience will enhance our faith. And our enthusiasm will build our patience and our patience will build our enthusiasm. So this is the best case scenario. Now, of course, for most of us, this best case scenario is quite rare. But that's why tomorrow when we talk about yena kena prakarena. So even if one of those things is there, we move along with one of those things. But in general, if I am working in life, if I am trying to do something, so I have the energy to do my part. So if we consider the example, say, of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, when his spiritual master told him that you should share Krishna's message, primarily in English language in the Western world, he started that. And he had extreme and extraordinary enthusiasm. He was introduced to his Guru Maharaj in 1992, got in this in 1933, and he's already writing articles, introducing his colleagues to the Gaudiya Math and to the spiritual master's teachings. And then he himself started writing a magazine in the 1940s, the Back to Gaudiya magazine. Then he started doing so many things. So Prabhupada had a lot of enthusiasm. Now while he had the enthusiasm, what happened is the results were not coming. See, when there is a hyper-controlling mentality, we have enthusiasm for some time, but if the enthusiasm, the results are not produced, we just lose the enthusiasm. What is the point of being enthusiastic? But Prabhupada did not lose his enthusiasm. He continued to live. Now it's interesting, when Prabhupada came to America, when he went to America, at that time, in 1965, he had been, consider the timeline, he was introduced to his spiritual master in 1922. He went to America in 1965. And his whole period, we could say that this was 43 years, we could say more seriously, because he got initiation in 33. Maybe a little before that he had started his serious outreach efforts. But whatever it is, whether you consider 30 years or 40 years, it's not a small time. There was practically the success. There was low or almost no success. The only success, tangibly speaking, he had was 3 years before he went to America, he wrote the Bhagavatam first canto commentary. That was something tangible he had to show with him. So when we do some service, we would like to see some tangible results. The tangible results is something, this is what I did. Prabhupada did not have any institution, Prabhupada did not have any followers. So actually, to persevere when we are not getting success is not easy. But he had that enthusiasm. That was remarkable. At the same time, when he went to America, so there is one statement that he made that there are temples and they're filled with devotees. And the devotional dimension, I'm going to talk about more tomorrow, but I'm just elaborating the principle. Here that he said that there are temples and they are filled with devotees. But it is time that separates. So in one sense, this time aspect is he was patient, but he also had faith. So faith and patience, they are related. So generally, like Bhagavan ke ghar mein der hai, andher. We say like that. So generally, it's easy for us to associate faith with patience. In our mind, okay, if you have faith in God, Bhagavan, God will do things in His own time. But associating faith with enthusiasm also is important. So it's like, if I have faith in Krishna, it's enthusiasm in doing my part. And patience in the rest working out. It is not that Prabhupada didn't have faith in Krishna. Sometimes it is if you have faith, all results will come. Yes, but faith itself may take some time to produce the results. It's not that just because if I have faith, I want to build a garden for Krishna. But I sow the roses today and tomorrow I get roses. Even if I have faith, I need patience. So this is illustrated, this dynamic is illustrated also in the Mahabharata. In one of the most dramatic days in the Mahabharata war. So the Mahabharata war was there for how many days? 18 days. Now, among those 18 days, there were 4 commanders on the Kaurava side. From day 1 to day 10, who was the commander? Bhishma was the commander. Now, as long as Bhishma was the commander, more or less, he kept things under a decent level of morality. He ensured that the Kauravas followed war codes. And that's how things were decent. Now, for the next 5 days, who was the commander? Drona was the commander. Now, during these days, things started going down. In 16 and 17, 2 days, Karna was the commander. The last day, Shalya was the commander. And the last night, Ashwatthama was the commander. Now, in one sense, the worst thing happened during Ashwatthama's commandership. So, now if you consider, during this time, on the 13th day, Abhimanyu was killed. And that was devastating. Now, and that day, basically the way things transpired is that when Bhishma fell, that's the time when Karna came to the battle. Karna had said that because Bhishma has always been minimizing me, I don't want that I'll fight for him and then he as the commander will get the credit for the victory. As long as he's fighting, I won't be there. So then when Bhishma fell and Karna came, at that time Drona expected that because Duryodhana and Karna are so close, Karna will become the commander. And Duryodhana actually offered Karna the commandership. But Karna said that many of the warriors here have been trained by Drona. And in his presence, if you offer me the commandership, they will all, not only will Drona take offense, but they will also take offense. And it is better that they offer the commandership to Drona. So Karna had, he didn't really have much respect for Drona, but he had that strategic sense that if he is the commander and if the soldiers and the warriors under him don't fight wholeheartedly, then again he will be blamed for the defeat. So he also hoped that in the next few days he would actually demonstrate his prowess to people. So now Drona was so surprised and delighted. Drona was also thinking that I'll have to be working under Karna. And naturally as an elder, naturally as a teacher, it was a bit of not a pleasant feeling for him to have to work under Karna. So when Duryodhana offered him the commandership, he was very pleased. He said, what boon would you like from me? And Duryodhana was just ready for this. Duryodhana said that, I want that you arrest Yudhishthira and bring him to me alive. Drona's eyes opened wide. He says, Ajata Shatru Yudhishthira is such that even you do not want me to kill him. So Duryodhana shook his head and he said that after watching the Pandavas fight for 12 years, for 10 days, especially Bhima and Arjuna fight for 10 days, I have concluded that it is impossible for us to defeat and destroy them in war. And if we kill Yudhishthira, then they will go mad and they will destroy our army. My plan is, once you arrest Yudhishthira, I will challenge him to another gambling match. And I will have him exiled for another 12 plus 1, 13 years. Drona shook his head. This person will never look. But Drona promised. Now on the 11th and the 12th days, Drona came very close to arresting Yudhishthira. But Drona told also already that I can arrest Yudhishthira, but you have to keep Arjuna away from me. Because although Arjuna is my student, he has learned everything from me that would have been my equal. But he is young and he has greater energy than me. And he has performed severe austerities and gained many celestial weapons. This was one critical difference. So Drona said that because of which, if he comes in the way, I will not be able to succeed. This is a difference not only between Arjuna and Drona. This is also a difference between Arjuna and Karna. When the Pandavas were in the forest, Arjuna did severe tapasya to get celestial weapons. Now Karna While Pandava was in the forest, Karna focused on, he would do his Surya Puja regularly. But Karna focused more on pleasing Duryodhana by winning wars for him and by supporting him in various ways. Karna knew at once that Parshurama had cursed him. That the celestial weapons you have learned, your most important weapons, in the most important war that you have, you will forget them. So he knew that curse. Now, Parshurama's curse had been only for the weapons which Parshuram had given him. The celestial weapons which he had given him. So that's why when he got the Shakti Astra from Indra, he did not forget the Shakti Mantra. Because that he had got by separate means. So Karna could also have got more celestial weapons. But he did not. So either way, what happened is that Arjuna came on the 11th day and on the 12th day. And just when Drona seemed to be victorious in arresting Yudhishthir, Arjuna came and stopped him. Now this was frustrating for Drona, but it was even more infuriating for Duryodhana. And he says, you have promised to Acharya that you will arrest Yudhishthir. Why are you not doing this? So he had arranged that Arjuna be challenged by some other warriors and taken in a different direction. But Arjuna would come back in time. So, and he would just stop it. So Drona felt that Duryodhana told Drona that if you are affectionate toward the Pandavas and because of that affection you cannot fight wholeheartedly, then please step down as the commander. Let Karna be the commander. And he will provide the victory. This was a terrible insight. And the difference between Drona and Bhishma was that, see, Bhishma was the family elder. Bhishma was the grandfather. So even when Drona would insult Bhishma, even Duryodhana would insult or criticize Bhishma, this is just my grandson, he would not take it very seriously. But while Drona was the teacher of Duryodhana also, Drona was also simultaneously an employee of Duryodhana. And because of that, what happened? The same words of criticism, Duryodhana had accused this to Bhishma also. But when he accused it to Drona, Drona was affected much more. And then Drona said that, okay, I will create a Chakravyuha tomorrow. And tomorrow, I will have Yudhishthira arrested. If you can keep Arjuna aside, then we will surely arrest Yudhishthira. And so the start of the day did not form Chakravyuha. They had a normal military formation. And then Susharma, one of the kings, challenged Arjuna. Arjuna got diverted in fighting with him. And he took Arjuna far aside. And then, after they quickly reformed and the Chakravyuha was revealed, behind the initial army formation, the whole Chakravyuha had already been formed, it was concealed. And it started marching towards the Pandava ranks. And now the spies from the Pandavas knew that this was meant to target Yudhishthira. And they became very greedy. And then they decided that the only way is Abhimanyu. And Abhimanyu told that I can go inside but I can't come out. So Bhima assured him, just go in, you break in, we will follow you. And once we are inside, we will destroy this from inside. So that plan was sensible. But unfortunately, Jayadratha came in it. And Abhimanyu was trapped. So, although Abhimanyu was trapped, and when Abhimanyu was trapped, the military formation closed, the Kauravas celebrated. Yes, we got Abhimanyu trapped. But it seemed for some time that the trap was going to trap them. Because Abhimanyu was just destroying everyone in the army. No one could stop him. Neither Karna, neither Ashwatthama, nor Drona himself, not Duryodhana, not Dushasana. Nobody. Abhimanyu defeated everyone. And finally, Karna and Shakuni, Duryodhana told to them, do something. So Karna said, Drona is our commander, he will come up with some idea. Shakuni said that, yes, let's consult with Drona. And Drona, feeling the pressure, he suggested that all 6 warriors attack him simultaneously. Then Abhimanyu was killed. And then that evening, when Arjuna came back, when he was returning from a long, hard day of fighting, and while the war was brutal, there was also a bit of a atmosphere of a sporting contest over it. It was meant to be a test of skill and skill. And in the evening, at the end of the war, on both sides, there would be musicians who would play soothing, celebratory music to welcome all the warriors back. But on this day, there was complete sober silence. Arjuna started feeling a pit in his stomach. And then, when he came in, he said, what could be wrong? Something terrible happened. Who could have passed it? His mind is going round and round. Who would have been killed? And as soon as he entered the main tent, his eyes went first to the throne of Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was seated there safe, but his eyes went here and there. Immediately he saw that Abhimanyu's throne was empty. He looked back in shock again at Yudhishthira. He noticed that tears had been flowing down Yudhishthira's face. His face had become marked by the tears flow. Arjuna collapsed. He just couldn't believe it. He started calling out, Abhimanyu, Abhimanyu, Abhimanyu. And then Yudhishthira came towards him with heavy steps and with a heavy heart told him what had happened. Now Arjuna went over there through a series of emotions. First was shock. Shock that something like this happened. Then, after that came guilt. Guilt. I am a warrior. I am meant to protect everyone. And I couldn't protect my own son. So I'm thinking, in his final moments, Abhimanyu would have called out to me, just as a child would call out to his father for help. Or, fire on me. He said, I went chasing my own glory and I was not there for my son. And from that guilt came anger. That anger initially was directed towards the Pandavas, his own brothers. He said, he looked at Yudhishthira and Bhima. He said, are all your weapons just ornaments? Could not one of you protect my son? For Yudhishthira and Bhima, this was like a kick on the face. So Krishna came to Yudhishthira, Arjuna and pulled him into a side hug. And Krishna said, oh Bharata, bad things happen to everyone in life. The wise and the unwise. But the difference is, when bad things happen to the unwise, they act in ways that make things worse. When they happen to the wise, they act in ways that make things better. And look at the faces of your brothers. They are in pain at the death of Abhimanyu just as you are in pain. Please, don't speak words that will increase their pain. So then, Arjuna's anger shifted toward the Kauravas. And within them, specifically, Jayadratha. Now, why specifically Jayadratha? Now, at this particular point, see, the Pandavas had spies, but the spies would often not be in the middle of the battlefield. And at this particular point, the exact mode in which Abhimanyu had been killed was not known. Because all that the Pandavas knew was, when Abhimanyu was killed, the Kauravas started celebrating. And when they started celebrating, they knew Abhimanyu has been killed. And the news came out. Now later on, the brutality with which he was killed came to be known later. But at this point, from Arjuna's perspective, what happened? That he thought not as a father, but as a strategist, as a military strategist. When Yudhishthira explained what they had thought and what they had planned, he said, yes, you had a sound plan. But it was Jayadratha who blocked it. So it was Jayadratha who cut off the support network that was there for Abhimanyu. And therefore Jayadratha has to be punished. Therefore Jayadratha is the cause of his death. Now the next day, so then Arjuna took up a vow. He said, tomorrow, before sunset, I will kill Jayadratha. And if I don't kill him, then I will enter into fire. And I will end my life. When Arjuna spoke this, the mood of the Pandava camp changed completely. There was complete shock and dismay and grief. And from there it shifted to anticipation and confidence. That everybody knew Arjuna was a man of his word. And if Arjuna had taken a vow, the next day would be the day of probably the world's defeat for the Pandavas. For the Pandavas? No. What was one day a terrible defeat for the Pandavas, next day it would turn out to be a worse defeat for the Kauravas. So this is the backdrop. I'll talk tomorrow about the whole second part of the story. This is where Utsaha Nishchaya Dhairya is seen in Arjuna. But there are some themes over here also which are related to our topic. So how Arjuna actually conquered in one day on the 14th day, that I'll discuss tomorrow. But the point over here is that when we say success, so Arjuna, now was Abhimanyu not successful? Well, at one level, yes, Abhimanyu died, so he was not successful. But at another level, he was successful. That he died, he fought as a hero, he lived as a hero, and he embraced his death as a hero. And by that, he attained an auspicious destination. So, we may have enthusiasm, but enthusiasm, the karma, daiva, and kala is there. So sometimes, if the daiva is not favorable, our karma may not lead to the phala. So at that time, we may think, oh, I failed. Well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the particular endeavor which we try for, we may not get that particular result. But if our karma that we do is done in a mood of dharma, in a mood of devotion, bhakti, then that will bear higher results. Even if the results don't come in this life, they will come at another time. They will come in the next life. So, when we talk about these three factors contributing, in general, when we start an endeavor in life, the problem is that we may seem to do everything that is in our control right, and still things may not work out. And that's why, ultimately, if we only have a material conception of life, then we may become disappointed. Because I did everything that I could. I was enthusiastic, I was patient, and I was having faith things will work out. Sometimes, despite our efforts, in life things do not work out. So, faith is not, this is the last point. Faith, what it is and what it is not. Daiva can at one level to destiny, and Daiva can also refer to divinity. These two are similar, but they are not the same. Destiny and divinity. What is the difference? Destiny is basically like the sum total of our past karma. So if I am going through life, if this is my present lifetime, and I had another life before this, I had another life before that. So what happens? Based on those past lives, when I enter into this life, I have a karma cloud above me. And this karma cloud is my destiny. And based on this karma cloud, sometimes some rain comes. One major installment, it comes partly positive, partly negative at birth. There's something good in the family we are born, the country we are born. There's something not so good about it also. And then throughout our life, sometimes a positive rain comes, sometimes a negative rain comes. So, this is Daiva. Daiva is basically the destiny, the stockpile of our karma, which comes upon us. But above destiny is divinity. Now, what is the relationship between destiny and divinity? That is, that divinity is God, Krishna. Divinity determines to some extent which karma comes to us at what time. So I said karma is functional, karma is an operational principle of reality. But how, which particular karma's result will come to us when? that is determined not by so much by destiny, but by divinity. So, when Drona is frustrated, when Duryodhana is frustrated, later on is happening in all that. When despite all his efforts, the Pandavas keep winning. Duryodhana says, I have more veteran warriors. I have more experienced warriors on my side. I have more number of warriors on my side. And yet I am losing. Why is that? So at that time Drona replies, O Prince, it is only endeavor that is in the hands of human beings. The results are ultimately determined by destiny. And the Lord of Destiny is on the chariot of Arjuna. The Lord of Destiny is on the chariot of Arjuna. So destiny, so Daiva can refer to destiny, but Daiva can also refer to divinity. So for those who are not practicing bhakti directly, then it's mostly destiny that is playing a role in them. God himself does not intervene. Not that he doesn't care, but he intervenes in our life to the extent we want him to intervene. So the dynamic of destiny and divinity, we'll look at it tomorrow. But faith, I was going to talk about this. The faith is meant to bring in that when I endeavor, faith is to bring in a certain level of submission. Submission means, yes, there is a higher reality, there is a higher plan, there is a higher purpose, and I submit myself to it. Faith is not a tool for manipulation. Manipulation means what? That by my prayers, by my faith, I can get God to do my will. It's not like that. It is not that sometimes people say that when you are singing God's glory, you are basically flattering God. You flatter God and then God does what you want for him. It's not like that. It's not manipulation. And so sometimes somebody might be even devoted and still even they may face some setbacks in life. The point is that when we make sense of life, then we can persevere. Okay, this didn't work out. This was particularly a factor because of which it didn't work out. But let me live in my life. So, let's summarize what we discussed today. Today we discussed our body. If you want to success principles, sometimes use the success formula. But success is too complicated to have any formula. Formula is more like an equation or something like that. But principles we can say. So 3 principles we discussed about how. The first is, in life we can have many confusions. One confusion could be about the ends. What is it that we want to achieve? And the second confusion can be about the means. Once I decided what I want to achieve, how do I want to achieve it? There could be confusion about means also. So today we were discussing the confusion about means. How do we know, how do we move forward in our life to achieve success? So I talked about that there are 3 principles. If I am here and this is the phala, the result I want, the end is I want. Once I have decided the ends, there are 3. You could say there are 3 planks on the bridge to success. So what are they? Karma, Daiva and Kala. So karma, Daiva and Kala. So karma is associated with enthusiasm, utsaha. Daiva is associated with faith. And Kala is associated with patience. So we need all of these to be able to be successful in life. So enthusiasm is what we do our part. I also discussed about how enthusiasm is associated with rajas. Faith is associated with patience is associated with tamas. Here also, when I am talking about 3 gunas, I am talking about them in a functional sense, not in a moral sense. In a functional sense, every human being needs to, like the nature, there is sometimes in sattva, sometimes in rajas, sometimes in tamas. Like that. The gunas also, in a functional sense, we need all 3 gunas in balance. And then I discussed about the principle of how artha, any artha, if it becomes paramartha, then it leads to anartha. So we discussed about how various examples, specifically for us, if there is only faith, or let's start, the only enthusiasm, that will lead to hyper-control. Hyper-controlling eventually leads to anger. We discussed how control is a need for us, but if control becomes too much, it leads to anger. Similarly, if there is only patience, that will lead to passivity. I'm just waiting, I'm doing nothing. That's not going to work. And if there's only faith, that will lead to sentimentality. That is, oh, I have faith that God will do everything. Yes, God will do everything, but we also have to do our part. So we discussed how these three can be, ideally speaking, they can be synergies. Our enthusiasm can increase our faith, and our enthusiasm and patience can also have similarly a synergistic relationship. And so can our faith and patience. So how this will work out, we'll discuss more in tomorrow's session, specifically in terms of how we can pursue it in our spiritual life also. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions of this? Please.
Just like everything comes with a price, so my understanding is even Daiva and Kal may have, for that we have to pay a price. Like suppose I did my karma to achieve particular thing, but on my level, on my consciousness level, I may not understand that was there any fault in doing my karma. But because the result didn't come, I assume that it is because of Daiva and Kala. So it might happen that because of having faith in God or because of having patience, I may not try to rectify if there was any fault made in the process.
Good point. See, the question is that sometimes will my faith make me think, or my spirituality or whatever, my philosophy make me think that if things did not happen in result, was that because of destiny? And then I may not try to introspect and improve myself. That's definitely a possibility. And I would say, broadly speaking, Eastern spirituality, you may think of the West as materialistic, but the West is not always materialistic. Materialism in the West came in the last 100 to 150 years. Before that, the West was also quite religious. Across the world, everyone was religious. And when Europe started colonizing the world, it was the Catholics who went to South America. The Protestants went to North America. The Protestants so Britain was Protestant, they came to India also. So my point is that there was religious zeal then. So what happened is, for various reasons, we could say the faith in the Western world led to enthusiasm. Faith in India, not just in India, in China also to some extent, faith, to what extent faith was there, that led to patience, but not to enthusiasm. So, both ways, extreme can be a problem. So what happens is, in the West, based on their enthusiasm, they brought about a lot of external change in material progress. But when there's enthusiasm without patience, the problem is that sometimes things just don't work out. So one extreme is to think that if something has not worked out, it must be my fault. The other is, okay, it's destiny, it was just not meant to work out. So we could go towards too much extreme in either way. So what happens if I consider whenever there is a failure, there is lack of success. So broadly, it could be lack of karma. Failure is because of lack of what? It could be lack of karma. By lack of daiva means something daiva could be negative. So now, if we think it is only karma, and if we think it's only daiva, So what happens if you think it's only Daiva? As I said, we'll become passive. So, excess of patience, things will work out. And what happens is, when there's excess of karma, it's all your responsibility, your problem. So that leads to, in one sense, anger. But anger can go two ways. Anger directed outwards is aggression. Anger directed inwards leads to depression. Depression is where, that I start thinking that, because I did not succeed, so I am a terrible person. And sometimes it is just that we did our best, but things don't work out. So which is healthy? Well, we have to be, it's more like intelligent analysis is required. Sometimes we can become, if in our worldview, there is no place to acknowledge the role of destiny, then what happens? All failure becomes my personal responsibility. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes the batsman may bat very well, but all the other batsmen get out. And the batsman cannot leave the team to win. Now if the batsman starts beating themselves up at that time, they don't use it. Now in such a situation, it's really easy to understand, I did my best. But sometimes it's not so easy to understand. So either ways, extreme is not good. So we have to carefully analyze it. That's why in some ways, association is important. Good association. So if, ideally speaking, if we understand that my nature, like I have a lot of enthusiasm, then it's easy for me to make friends with those who have enthusiasm. But I also need to be able to make friends with those who have more patience and more faith. Then they will be able to complement me. So if there's a birds of a feather flock together, that's one truth. But it's also that unlikes attract each other. Like poles don't attract, unlike poles attract. So what is true? Well, both are valid truths. So at one level, it is easier for people who are movers and shakers. People who do big projects. There is bhakti or an outright, people who do big projects. It's natural for them to gravitate with towards each other. But it's important that at least in our circle, some people who are not so driven constantly by external, tangible, measurable definitions of success. So by that what will happen is this passivity, that Daiva. Yeah, you did your best, you did work. Don't take it personally. Prabhupada writes in the first canto purport that there is nothing to regret when things are beyond human control. We did our part, it can work out, it's okay. So it's not so easy to introspect at that moment. Maybe sometimes after the emotion of the moment has decreased, then we can actually objectively analyze. When this didn't work out, to what extent was it my fault? To what extent was it things beyond my control?
Thank you.
You have a mic? Right.
When you were talking about faith and saying that the thing of it is not manipulation, it is instead submission. Then I thought of a Reiki system which is getting popular, where they try to get a belief system where if you think that you can do healing also, you can find some of your goals to success like that. So what is your view on that and how to see that?
Okay. If you consider the Reiki system and the belief that we can heal through our thoughts, well, at one level, in the Vedic worldview, the mind is real. Just like the body is real, the mind is also real, the soul is also real. The mind is real, that means the mind also has real powers. So the problem is often to go to two extremes. To think the mind has no power, or to think the mind has all powers. So that's why, does the attitude make a difference? Of course it makes a difference. Somebody can have positive attitude, somebody can have negative attitude. But does it mean positive attitude will always lead to success? No. It is that if Reiki were like a panacea, Nobody's sick in the world. So it's not that our thoughts alone can heal big to all. So now, even if we consider praying to some divinity or connecting with some higher power or whatever, all that is good, but there's no guaranteed success anywhere. Because how Daiva will work out, nobody knows. So in Ayurveda also, they have this whole scale of analysis that sometimes when a particular medicine does not work, then the Ayurvedic doctor said this particular disease is by destiny. And then they may refer you to chant some, worship some devatas or chant some mantras. Now, even that will work or not, we don't know. But the point is, to whatever extent we can, we try to look at causal perspective from our frame of analysis. So for example, if I'm giving this talk and suddenly the sound goes off, or should I start thinking, oh, it is my destiny that the sound system went off? No, look at the simply switch this off. Or did the battery get discharged? Did the power supply go off? So to whatever extent we can analyze within our frame of reference, we should analyze. And considering the mind and the role it plays, also is an important component. So the mind has healing power, there's no doubt about it. Depending on how our frame of mind is. So from biological perspective, neurological perspective, you can say people who feel loved, cared for, valued, their brain secretes more enzymes which are connected with, which are stimulating healing. There's a famous paper, quite a well-known paper, which is a program where science and spirituality kiss each other. That's the title of it. What was more in the mental sense, for the spiritual and mental are the same. They found that people who had some very severe surgeries, if those people had loving relatives and had a sense of meaning for their life, had something to look forward to in their life afterwards, after the surgery, they would recover faster. People who did not have much to look forward to, they would not recover that. So that definitely plays a role.
How to understand that border, that becomes difficult sometimes.
See, the border is difficult in everything. Because say, if somebody is prepared for IIT and they don't succeed in first attempt, if they make a second attempt, yes, okay, maybe. Third attempt, well, probably not. 10th attempt, certainly not. Isn't it? Life has to go on and we have to move on with life. So I would say that we have to have a sense of perspective by which we will know how much effort should I put in this particular area. So it's just like any other modality of treatment. If I have some sickness, a long time chronic sickness, I may decide that I'll try this treatment for 1 month, for 3 months, for 6 months. But then after that, I can't really. Now I have to move to something else. So how much will that be? That is something which we have to make a judgment call ourselves. Any other questions? Yes, please. It's online.
Yeah.
Vishnu, have any questions?
So Abhishek Pruja asked this question. Many times in the services we become too much result conscious and get disturbed if things don't turn our way. How to rise above from this platform to the platform of doing our duty sincerely and dedicatingly? What practical actions should we take?
How can we ensure that we don't become too result conscious in our services? It's difficult because we live in the material world and we also want to serve Krishna in the material world. So to serve Krishna, so Bhakti, I'll talk about this more tomorrow, but Bhakti has two aspects to it at one level. One is we connect with Krishna through our consciousness. This is, you could say, more like an internal connection with Krishna. But the other is we connect with Krishna through the world. That is where we want to offer the world, or offer at least our small corner of the world to Krishna. So Prabhupada's heart was always connected with Krishna. His consciousness was always offered to Krishna. But still, why did he go from India to America and Jerusalem? Because he also wanted to offer the world to Krishna. So bhakti has an inner dimension and outer dimension. Now, which is more important? We could say the inner is more important. But that does not mean the outer is not important. That ultimately what Krishna wants is our heart. But we want to express our heart to the things in this world also. So, wanting to do our service well, in the sense that wanting some tangible results from the service, is not wrong. The challenge comes when we reduce bhakti to only this part. That if I am not able to do my service, or if my service does not manifest any results, then that means I am a bad devotee, or I am a worthless devotee. Maybe not. Sometimes we say purity is the force. Yes, purity is the force, but purity is not the only force. Why isn't that from before 1965, 1960, was Prabhupada not pure? Why did Prabhupada not get result before that? See? So is it that after going to America, the land of the pure, impure, then Prabhupada became pure after that? No. So in the material world, when success comes, it's a complex combination of factors. And there's the spiritual purity that is there. But the material suitability of the situation, that also is important. The same Prabhupada, when he came back to India also, after that, it was a cultural sensation. Prabhupada coming back with Western disciples. But that cultural sensation did not lead to a spiritual transformation. In the sense that not many people became initiated disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So that happened later on, after about 10-15 years, when devotees, Prabhupada disciples started become a little older and more experienced. The thing is that, so we have to be recognizing that it's not only one or the other. And I want to offer my consciousness to Krishna, I also want to offer the world. If sometimes I'm not able to offer the world, that does not mean Krishna is going to reject. Then we may have to see, okay, this service is not working, then what should I do? Maybe I have to improve the service, maybe I have to do some other service, maybe I need some support in the service. So the consciousness is more important than the world, but the world is not unimportant. So at least what we should be able to do is, so in one sense you can say, focus on the internal more than the external. That is true, but in our life, it's very difficult to focus only on the internal. So then, if we consider our services, we need to have some kind of range of services. Maybe in some service we get some sense of success. Somewhere there is no success. So if we are doing only one service, and in that one service there is no success, then that's going to be very difficult to succeed, to continue for us. So everybody needs some sense of success, some sense of value. Okay, I started doing this, I learned cooking, now I'm able to cook well. No, I learned speaking, but maybe when I go and speak, not many people come for my talks, or not many people become devotees to my talk. That's okay. Maybe to do something at least. So try to find out some area where we can get success. And that doesn't mean we give up all the other services. But we don't let ourselves be defined by those services only, where we're not getting success. We'll continue tomorrow.
Day after tomorrow, same time.
Oh, it's day after tomorrow. Okay, fair enough. So, second part of the session will be day after tomorrow, evening. Here itself. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Jai Gaur Preman.
Hari Hari Bol.